Here goes one brutal secret most people will never accept. No one is as obsessed with your life as you think. While you're losing sleep over someone leaving you in the dark, they probably don't even remember you talked while you're stewing over that awkward situation for weeks. Other people have completely forgotten because they're dealing with their own internal dramas. While you're desperately trying to impress everyone, you're becoming exactly the kind of person no one takes seriously. Here's the stinging truth. Your need for external validation is sabotaging the very thing you want most: genuine respect. Every time you over-explain, react too quickly, or beg for attention, you're communicating one thing: I don't trust my own worth, so I need you to convince me I'm worth something. There's a quiet elite of people who have discovered something revolutionary. When you stop chasing approval and start really working on yourself, you develop a magnetic presence that attracts exactly what you were desperately chasing before. What I'm going to show you today goes against all the advice to be yourself and open up more. Get ready to discover why less is more, why silence generates more respect than any excuse, and how to transform rejection from a personal tragedy into a smart filter. In the next few minutes, you'll learn how to become the person who doesn't need to ask for respect because they simply command it through their very presence. There's a childhood fantasy that most people carry into adulthood, a deeply ingrained belief that someone is always watching and will magically appear to solve their problems when things get tough. This illusion begins in childhood, when we cried and someone rushed to comfort us, when we were down and received extra attention, when our dramas were the center of family attention. The brain registers this pattern and creates an expectation: if I'm hurting enough, someone will notice and come save me. This programming is so strong that many people spend decades waiting for the world to acknowledge their pain, validate their struggles, and offer the comfort they believe they deserve. It's one of the most dangerous illusions in human psychology because it keeps us in a perpetual victimhood, waiting for a savior who will never arrive. The reality is that no one is as obsessed with their own life as you imagine. In fact, people are desperately focused on their own internal battles to have energy left for their own. While you've been stewing over that embarrassing situation for weeks, other people have completely forgotten because they're dealing with their own anxieties, insecurities, and problems. It's almost comical how we overestimate how much we take up other people's mental space. You think everyone noticed you stuttered during your presentation, but the truth is, half the audience was thinking about their lunch, and the other half was preoccupied with their own projects. This self-obsession isn't bad. It's simply how the human brain works. Each person is the protagonist of their own story, and you are, at best, an occasional supporting character. Here's the cruel paradox of validation. The more you seek recognition and attention, the more invisible you become to the people who truly matter. It's like trying to scoop up water with your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. When you send that WhatsApp message and are left in the dark, your first impulse is to create a dramatic narrative. They hate me. I'm not important. Nobody cares about me. But the reality is infinitely simpler and less about you. That person is probably lost in their own chaos, answering work emails, dealing with family issues, or simply forgot to respond because they saw the message at a bad time. The lack of response isn't a judgment on your worth. It's just proof that everyone is navigating their own internal storms. When you finally understand this, you stop interpreting others' inattention as personal rejection and start focusing on the only opinion you can truly control: your own. The desperate need to be seen and validated creates a dangerous compulsion. The attention-addicted person reacts to everything instantly, as if every situation were an emergency requiring their immediate response. It's like being in constant emotional survival mode, where every comment, every look, every silence is interpreted as a threat that needs to be neutralized through a quick, defensive reaction. This behavior reveals exactly the opposite of what you want to communicate. Instead of appearing confident and in control, you convey desperation and insecurity. Truly self-assured people don't feel the need to respond to every provocation, explain every misunderstanding, or defend every position. They understand that reacting too quickly is a sign of weakness, not strength. because it shows that you can be easily manipulated by external circumstances. Strategic silence is one of the most powerful weapons in the arsenal of those who understand true personal power. It's like having an invisible superpower that diffuses tense situations without you having to say a word. When someone provokes you, expecting an explosive reaction, and you simply pause, breathe, and remain calm, you force that person to confront their own inappropriate behavior. It's fascinating to observe how well-calibrated silence can completely transform the dynamics of a conversation. While the other person struggles to provoke you, you remain composed. And this serenity communicates a level of maturity and control that generates instant respect. It's not passivity or cowardice. It's a sophisticated emotional strategy. Silence communicates, I don't need to defend myself because I don't feel threatened. I don't need to prove anything because I already know who I am. In a heated argument, there's a devastatingly effective technique that separates mature people from those still stuck in childish patterns. Instead of desperately explaining yourself, justifying every point, or counterattacking with defensive arguments, you simply look at the person, take a deep breath, and wait. It's counterintuitive because every instinct screams at you to defend yourself. But this intentional pause does something magical. It forces the other person to fill the void. And when people get nervous, they inevitably give in to their own excess. They start talking too much, justifying themselves, revealing their true motivations and insecurities. Meanwhile, you stand like a rock in the middle of a storm, demonstrating through your composure that you possess something they lack: genuine self-control. This energy difference is so striking that, even without saying a word, you already won the argument by refusing to participate in the other person's emotional theater. There's an existential truth that few have the courage to face. You are the only person who will see your life through from beginning to end, witnessing every moment of weakness, every secret victory, every broken commitment, and every promise you keep to yourself. While friends come and go, relationships begin and end, jobs change, and families transform, you remain the constant observer of your own existence. This reality can be terrifying for those who live in search of external validation, because it means that all those small betrayals to yourself, when you promised to wake up early and didn't, when you said you'd study and stayed on your phone, when you swore you'd change but chose the easy way out, have an inescapable witness. You can fool the whole world, but you can't fool the person who looks at you in the mirror every day and knows the truth about who you really are versus who you pretend to be. For those still trapped in the addiction to external approval, this responsibility to be your own witness feels like a curse, a constant reminder of all the ways you don't measure up to your own expectations. But when you finally make the most important perspective shift of adulthood, from seeking external validation to developing genuine self-validation, this very reality becomes your greatest superpower. You become your own harshest judge and, simultaneously, your greatest supporter. Not because you're condescending to yourself, but because you develop such solid internal standards that the opinions of others become irrelevant. It's like having an internal GPS system that always guides you in the right direction, regardless of what other people think you should do. This emotional independence isn't selfishness. It's emotional maturity at its highest level. Discipline becomes the practical language through which you demonstrate self-respect. Every time you choose to do what you promise yourself, especially when no one is watching, you deposit credibility into the bank account of your self-esteem. When you get up at 5 a.m. to work out on a cold, rainy Monday when no one will know if you went or not, you're not just exercising your body, you're strengthening the confidence that your word counts, even if it's a word given only to yourself. When you choose to study instead of watching another episode of a TV show, when you opt for a nutritious meal instead of the tastiest but most unhealthy option, when you keep a commitment to yourself even when your motivation has vanished, you're building something far more valuable than muscles or knowledge. You're building a solid identity based on consistent actions, not fantasies or good intentions. This is the difference between people who depend on the validation of others and those who validate themselves through concrete evidence of their own character. The modern compulsion to narrate every feeling, every experience, every thought that crosses our mind is a symptom of a deep insecurity disguised as authenticity. People who have truly processed their emotions don't feel a desperate need to turn every internal drama into public content. There's a world of difference between sharing with purpose and emotionally vomiting on everyone nearby. When you learn to process your pains, victories, fears, and achievements internally first, you develop a kind of emotional digestion that transforms raw experiences into refined wisdom. Emotionally mature people understand that not every internal storm needs to become a public hurricane. They know there's power in consciously choosing what to share, with whom to share it, and when to share it. This curation isn't fakery, it's applied emotional intelligence. Strategically guarding part of your experience, your deepest pains, your most significant victories, your most transformative insights creates an aura of authority that cannot be manufactured or imitated. It's like being an iceberg. What people see on the surface is impressive, but they sense much more hidden depth. And this realization generates genuine respect and curiosity. When you don't over-explain yourself, don't constantly justify yourself, and don't turn every situation into an opportunity for public catharsis, you automatically differentiate yourself from the crowd of people who spill their entire lives onto social media or in casual conversation. This controlled reserve isn't coldness or arrogance. It's the mark of someone who has developed a solid relationship with themselves and doesn't need external validation to process their experiences. It's the difference between an open book, predictable and quickly discarded, and a closed book, intriguing and constantly in demand in a meeting, where everyone over-explains, over-justifies, and beats around the bush to appear important. There's a devastatingly effective strategy that immediately puts you in a position of silent leadership. You speak little, but when you do, it's direct, precise, and packed with real substance. While others waste words trying to impress, you economize your communication like gold. Every sentence carries weight, every comment has purpose, every intervention adds genuine value to the discussion. This verbal economy creates something psychologically fascinating. People start paying more attention when you open your mouth, because they know it won't be idle chatter. They develop an expectation that your words carry meaning, and that expectation automatically translates into respect. It's like being a verbal sniper in the middle of a machine gun battle. While others indiscriminately expend ammunition, you wait for the right moment for a well-placed shot that defines the entire situation. Rejection is perhaps the most efficient mechanism. The universe is created to direct you to where you truly belong, but most people interpret it as a personal failing rather than intelligent navigation. When someone rejects you romantically, professionally, socially, they're not passing judgment on your universal value. They're simply communicating that you're not compatible in that specific context. It's like trying to force a puzzle piece into the wrong place, no matter how hard you push. If it doesn't fit naturally, you'll never form the complete picture. Rejection didn't mean you were unsuitable. It meant it wasn't the right environment for your potential to flourish. When you finally understand that rejection is redirection, not punishment, you stop wasting energy trying to convince the wrong people and start investing in finding them right ones. Strategic solitude, consciously choosing to be alone rather than accepting low-quality company, is one of the most valuable investments you can make in your personal development, but it requires a courage few possess. When you're alone, without the constant distractions of external validation, social approval, or interpersonal drama, you're forced to confront who you truly are versus who you pretend to be. This confrontation is uncomfortable, but it's also where the deepest growth happens. It's like emotional weight training. The discomfort of solitude strengthens your ability to trust your own clarity, to make decisions based on your inner values, rather than external pressure, to develop a moral compass that works regardless of who is or isn't in your life. People who have never learned to be alone are vulnerable to accepting any relationship, friendship, or opportunity just to avoid emptiness, and this desperate need makes them easy targets for manipulation and toxic situations. There's a transformative moment in every mature person's life when the old you, the one who begged for attention, who contorted himself to be accepted, who sacrificed authenticity for approval, literally dies, and someone is born who doesn't ask for permission to exist. Imagine being ignored. In a social group where you once would have done anything to be included, the old you would have gone into panic mode, tried to force conversations, made desperate jokes, or walked away feeling rejected and inadequate. But when you evolve into someone who validates themselves internally, this very situation becomes a silent demonstration of your new energy. You remain calm, comfortable in your own presence, not trying to compensate or compete for attention. And here's the fascinating thing: this genuine indifference to group approval creates a reverse magnetism. People begin to wonder why you're not chasing after them, why you seem so centered and self-sufficient, and paradoxically, they begin to respect you precisely because you're not begging for their respect. You become interesting precisely because you're not trying to be interesting. Now you have access to a truth that can either liberate or terrify, depending on what you choose to do with it. Other people's opinions of you are far less important than you've always believed and far less frequent than you've always imagined. But knowing this truth isn't enough. You must have the courage to live by it, even when every ancient instinct screams at you to return to old patterns of desperately seeking validation. So answer me with complete honesty. Are you ready to kill the version of yourself that craves attention? Do you have the courage to be alone until you find people who genuinely value you, instead of accepting crumbs of attention from just anyone? And most importantly, are you willing to do the necessary inner work, discipline, self-awareness, developing personal standards even when no one is watching to applaud your efforts? Because here lies the ultimate test of your emotional maturity: being able to respect yourself when there's no audience, being able to maintain your standards when there's no recognition, being able to work on your growth when there are no likes, comments, or external validation. The difference between people who transform their lives and those who remain trapped in the same cycle of neediness lies in a single choice. Stop begging for crumbs of attention and start building a life so solid that the approval of others becomes optional, not essential. The loneliness you fear so much can become your greatest ally if you stop running from it and start using it as a laboratory to discover who you truly are when no one is looking. Every day you postpone this transformation is another day wasting energy on people who, frankly, are too busy with their own lives to care all that much about yours. If this video awakened you to an uncomfortable but liberating reality, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. And the next time we meet here, I want you to have already begun to experience the power of not needing anyone's approval to feel complete. Until the next video,